Some exercise on average, just on the mechanics, don't do that great. And I can specify what kind of mechanics. One is if an exercise targets a lot of muscle generally, it can't possibly target one muscle a lot specifically. And thus for a specific muscle, it has a poor stimulus to fatigue ratio. Deadlifts, for example. What exactly does the conventional deadlift train? You can't answer that question because that question is an answer of like 80% of the muscles of the body. Glutes, sort of hamstrings, maybe adductors, some quads technically, tons of lower back, but not exclusively, depending on how you pull, mid back, upper back, traps, holy fuck. So if you're really trying to grow, insert any muscle here with conventional deadlifts, there's probably an exercise that gives you as much stimulus for a fraction of fatigue. Another thing is range of motion. If the exercise doesn't expose that target muscle into a deep stretch, you could do better. So for example, floor press. Sure, we'll have a video on the YouTube at some point about this. The floor press is just you hold dumbbells or a barbell, you go down onto your elbow, so you're lying on the ground like an animal. It's benches for civilized people. Mine at my gym are made of gold. No, it's platinum. I think it's diamonds. It's very uncomfortable, but the wealth alone keeps me comfortable. So you touch down here and you can't possibly physically get a big stretch. So it, in some contexts can be a great exercise, but just on the raw probabilities, probably isn't that great. So those are some of the exercises that I would say, like deadlifts, floor presses, anything you do with a partial range that's not in a lengthened deep stretch position is probably not ideal for hypertrophy. Rack pulls are another one. What exactly are rack pulls training? Fuck if I know. I think they train mostly the ego because you load 18 plates on each side. That one girl used to look at, she's like, oh my God, you're like a fucking superhero. And you're like, yeah, you want to see me fucking, etc. Then you get laid. I think that's how it works. One is a good technique should be focused on targeting a specific muscle or muscles. And by sheer biomechanics, you know, if you're doing this motion, it's not your biceps. So sometimes people will be like, I'm training delts, and they'll do like alternating lifts like this with their fist pointed up. And that hits the front delts, but it can't really possibly hit the side delts. And so if you're like, hey man, I'm trying to get big side delts, and you do that technique, I'm going to be like, that can't, you can do like a stick and rope model of the body where you're like, that's not the muscle that does that. So that automatically means like, if you want big lats, you're going to do pull-ups or rows because it's the sheer mechanics. And there are more particularities where if you pull out like this, it's probably not as much lats as it is upper back. If you pull down, it's more lats just because how the muscle attached. So that's kind of the king variable of good technique. So for example, if you say you're training your quads, and you do a squat that's sumo stance, you're sitting back really far, you're getting a very small degree of knee flexion. There are better ways to train the quads. That is not the best technique for the quads almost for anyone, because the better technique would be like, well, we target the quads. That means we expose them. That means we give them a high degree of range of motion, which means like as you squat mostly down, your toes should go over your knees should go over your toes rather, and you should go nice and deep. That really biomechanically has to train your quads. So that's number one. Another one is to have a movement that has a considerable degree of stability. So if you're unstable, so for example, if you're doing upright rows and you keep coming up on your toes and you're wiggling around, that's reducing your force production. So good technique means stable.
Because your body will dial down how much force your muscles can deploy if you're stood on a vibrating plate, or if you're on a balance beam, or if you're on something else.
Bosu ball.
Yeah.
100%. It happens completely automatically. I've been directly involved in laboratory testing for something like this. We had the insane study we did, lots of spotters. We had people max out in the high bar back squat, and then we had them max out on a Bosu ball. Good news, they only squatted about 60% of the 1 rep max.
That's still quite a lot,
right?
But on a fucking Bosu
totally.
ball?
Wow. But to put it another way, unless you're doing profoundly high repetitions, if you're doing sets of 5 to 10 with 60% of your true 1 rep max, what would be in stability, you're getting almost no hypertrophy as an intermediate or advanced trainee. But it's not. You're learning how to squat on a Bosu ball, which is cool at parties. You can show off, maybe get laid, maybe not. But it's not good because you want to be nice and stable. So for example, if you and I are training together and you start doing incline dumbbell press, but I notice your feet are hanging off or kind of dangling, there's like 2 things that can happen. One, you're a short king like me who never grew up to be an adult height. And then I'm just going to be like, that sucks, but good luck. But if you're a tall king like yourself or a medium king, how tall are you?
5'10".
Oh, perfect. The man height. I would say, hey, Chris, try to put your feet down and really corkscrew them into the ground to get that stability. You'll find you'll get more reps and be able to do more weight with incline dumbbells, which is a really good thing. So stability is a technique universal, generally speaking. So if I see you do cable flies and you're stopping here, I'm going to talk to you and I better hope you have 2 fucked up shoulders. Because if they're totally healthy, I'm going to say go ultra deep for that super big stretch. Don't avoid that.
What's happening in that deep stretch?
Fuck if I know, science and shit.
You're the guy.
Yeah, look, man, we don't know all of the shit. You know what I'm saying? Put me on the spot like that. There's molecules in there and cells and God knows what else, Chris. No, so we don't actually know exactly why a stretch stimulates hypertrophy. There are several candidate mechanisms being investigated. And I can regale you with the details, but it's a little bit pointless because all the details could be totally wrong. It's a candidate mechanism that fails inspection, right? So in a few months, few years, we'll know exactly why that occurs. But we have something better than a candidate mechanism. We have very good control trials where the only difference between groups or applications is one group goes nice and deep and the other does not. We have studies on, for example, the quadriceps where the volume and the load is identical between groups. You even got clever studies where people train one leg with a deep stretch only, bottom third, and the other leg they train only with the top third of leg extension. That's a big deal because auto control. It's not like genetics doesn't matter. Nothing matters.
The same body.
Same
You've
body.
got to split test the
Right?
left and the right.
Amazing.
Yeah. How great.
So a lot of those studies are showing that the deep stretch just causes more growth. Now, it's 5 to 10% more growth. So you can do top end partials. You can bench like this and get plenty of muscle growth. Tons of IFB pros and jacked up juice heads do it and they're still jacked. But from an efficiency and effectiveness perspective, all those guys could have been bigger if they went in for that really deep stretch. So to me, that's a big part of really good technique.
How long do I need to take on that eccentric portion?
Yeah, it's a good question. It seems to not matter much. Anything between a repetition that in total takes 1 second, including eccentric and concentric, and all the way up to a total of 9 seconds, which is a lot of pain. It seems to be that if you do more quick repetitions, you can get more repetitions. If you seem to do slower repetitions, you get fewer, but each one has a lot more stimulus. It's kind of like filling up a glass of a certain height. If you go really slow, it takes you longer. You fill up the glass. If you go really fast, it doesn't take as long, fills up the glass. The glass filling is what we want anyway. There's a certain amount of stimulus you can drive to your muscles. You could do it more slowly. You could do it more quickly. It doesn't seem to matter for hypertrophy. However, under control is the big caveat. So if you just dump the stuff on you and then kind of crank it up and then dump, yeah, that's not going to be as hypertrophic as some modicum of control. Now, if I go down this fast and come back up, I still 100% control the eccentric. As long as I'm doing that, I can go ultra slow. I can go a little bit more quickly and anything in between. At least tentatively for now, we can say one thing almost for sure. It doesn't make a huge difference. It matters for everyone because injuries are no fun in any case. There are also injuries that can go with you the rest of your life. You do a major distal pectoral tendon rupture, full avulsion, you're just never going to be the same again. We need another 15 years of medical tech to reattach that thing in a way that it doesn't look fucked up or feel fucked up. You don't want to do yourself dirty when you're 22, rip a pec off. You're just never the fucking same. You don't look the same. You don't perform the same. Powerlifting is kind of done for you. Bodybuilding is kind of fucking weird at that point. So when people say, yeah, when you're young, you can get away with shit when you're young, but statistically, it's still a downside. What I will say is, I'll put it another way, exactly agreeing with your point. When you are young, I fucking get it. Yeah, I can do this. The fucking bitch over there seeing you do it. You're getting laid. Whatever. Ego shit. Live your life. When you're older, and this is like a particular pet peeve of mine, I see like a fucking balding 48-year-old man swinging the fucking dumbbells around him. But come here, dumb motherfucker. What are you doing? How old are you? It's like I've actually talked to a few women in my day. Nothing sexual. When you're 13 years old, 17 years old, and you have what I would describe as very understandable, but kind of a childlike relation to body image and stuff like that, like you're unable to go through a muscle gain phase because any amount of extra pudge on you just feels totally wrong. You're 17. Fuck it. I get it. Fucking we all had body image issues. I talked to a 37-year-old woman or 47-year-old woman who knows she needs to gain muscle, but is unwilling to gain an extra half centimeter of pudge. I'm like, look, Linda, how old are you? She's like, I'm 47 years old. What do you do for a living? I'm managing an accounting firm. So you're intelligent and responsible and you can see ahead, right? She's like, well, yes, of course. I'm like, You can't make the trade-off to gain a fucking half centimeter of fat on your ass so you gain more muscle. And she's like, God damn it, you're right. So just the same way, if I see you see a younger guy swinging weights around, I'm like, whatever, to be 20 again, my man. I see a 40-year-old doing it, I'm like, dude, come on. It's like seeing a 45-year-old, like, just after watching Fast and Furious 18 or whatever, like rev his shit up against a younger guy. And what the fuck? Really? This is what we're doing? So it's always good for everyone. But for older people, just have no fucking excuse. Slow your shit down, control your shit.